We will discuss a little bit about Natvam in Sanskrit Bhasha, the Sanskrit language. That is Dantya Na, dental Na, changing to Murdhanya Na, the cerebral Na. And more about the logic behind it, why this change happens. Some examples are given here. The first few lines here show where the Na is changing to Na. That is Arnavah, which is shown here. Arnavah, Krishnaha, Shrunoti, Harina, Bhashanam, Ramanam, Ramayanam, Tarpanam. So in these examples, in these words, Na, the sound of Na is changing to Na, right? And there are a few words here like Darshanam, Parvatena, Murdhna. So these words show where the Na is not changing to Na. So it remains as Na here. Let's look at the rules for changing Na to Na quickly. Like there are many rules in Sanskrit grammar, but the main rules which can be easily remembered, they are like this. So there are three trigger letters, Nimitta Varnaha. Trigger letters means which cause changing of Na to Na. So these three letters are Ru, which is a vowel, and Ra, which is a consonant, and a Sh, which is also a consonant. So one of these letters has to be before Na in a sentence. For example, if we take the word Shrunoti, which we saw earlier, right? Shrunoti. See here, how is this word? What is this word made of? Like the first letter is Sh here, this Sh, and then there is a Ru, a vowel, and then there is no, Noti is there, but originally the suffix was like this, Noti. So here we have Na here. Now whether this should change, this Na should change to Na or should remain Na, we can look at this rule that the Na here, before that there is a vowel Ru. So this is a Nimitta Vana, trigger letter. So this is coming before Na, and in that case the rule says that the Na changes to Na. So what we get is the Shrunoti. So the Shrunoti changes to Shrunoti. Right. So another example is what we had Arnava. Right. So we had another example is Arnava. Let's take this example. So here what we have A. What are the letters here? A and then Ra, the Vyanjanam or the consonant Ra, and we have Na Va originally. Whether this Na changes to Na, again there is a nimitta or a trigger letter here, Ra. So because of that, this Na is changing to Na. Or so R instead of R Nama, it becomes R Nama. R Nama. So this is one of the basic rules. That another example is Krishna. Right? When we say, we take the example of Krishna. So here also, here what are the words here? There is Kru, and after that there is a sh, which is one of the trigger letters, sh, and then there is na. Originally the suffix came as na. Again, because of this trigger letter sh, this changes to na, changes to na. So we have Krishna. So this word becomes Krishna. So this is the first rule, that before na in a word, if one of the trigger letters is present, then that na changes to na. Now the second letter, the second rule is that in a word, before the na, before this na, this one of the trigger letter has to be there, either r, r, or sh. But in between that, there could be other letters. Before this na, this one of the trigger letters may not be immediately there, like we saw like in the examples of Arnava, Krishna, or Shunoti. In those cases, these trigger letters, the trigger letter was immediately before this na, but that may not be the case all the time. So in between the trigger letter and the na, there could be other letters. For example, any other letters. If we take the example Bhashana, Bhashana, this is the word we know. But again, when the word is being formed, this na, the suffix is coming as na originally. So does it change to na or remains as na? Depends on the second rule. That here in this case, what is happening? Bha, and there is a sh, and then there is a in, because this sh has a in it at the ending It is just not the consonant. There is a vowel in it, and after that the na is coming. There is a bha, and then the trigger letter sh is there, but the na is not immediately after this consonant sh, but there is a in between. So we have bhasha, bhasha, and this na will change to na because of the second rule, which says that in between the trigger letter and the following na, if there is any swara or a vowel, any vowel, okay, or one of these consonants, kavarga vyanjanani means one of these, ka, kha, ga, gha, nga, or pavarga vyanjanani, pa, pha, ba, bha, ma, or ya, va, ha. One of these, how many consonants? 5, 5, 10, and 13. 13 consonants, or there are also total 13 vowels are there. One of those 13 vowels, any of those 13 vowels, or any of these 13 consonants, if any of those present in between this trigger letter or the na, then the na will change to na. These are non-preventing letters. These letters, the 13 vowels and these 13 consonants, they do not prevent changing of na to na. That is what is shown here. Like for example, bhasha na, there is a vowel in between. So, and the trigger letter is sh, so the na changes to na. So another such example, if you take the example of, let's say, tarpana. Now in this case also, ta is there, and The R is there first here in the sequence of letters here, then the P is there, then there is A, then at the end this Na is coming as a suffix first. Does this change to Na? Let's see. What is the trigger letter here? Trigger letter should be one of these three. R, R or Sh. Yes, there is a R and there is a N following it, but in between there are two more letters, not only one, there are two. So which are these? There is a vowel. So vowel here is not preventing, right? Is not preventing changing na to na. And what else is there? There is also P. P is also here, which is in the list of non-preventing letters. So both these letters which are there here are in the list of not preventing or non-preventing letters. So in this case also na changes to na because both the letters which are in between the trigger letter and the na both are non-preventing letters. So they are, so the na changes to na. So this becomes tarpana. So it will not remain as tarpana, but it will change to tarpana. So these are the two simple rules anyone can remember, that whether a na changes to na or not. So other examples which were given before, like harina. So in that also na changes to na. When it doesn't change, we had some examples like darshana. So if we take a darshana, so what is the sequence of letters here? So we have the, which doesn't matter, the, then we have ra, and then we have sh and a, and then there is na here. Now does it change to na? Na, does it change to na? Let's see, where is the trigger letter here? Is there a trigger letter? First we have to see. If there is no trigger letter, then na obviously doesn't change to na, it will remain as na. Now there is a trigger letter here, ra, and but what is the in between letters between the trigger letter and na? There are two letters here. One is sh, this sh, and a. Note that this sh is not this sh. This is cerebral or murdhanya sh, and this is talavya or palatal sh. So this sh is different than this sh. So this is not a trigger letter. So this will prevent, though the vowel will not prevent changing na to na, but there is another one more letter here which is sh. This will prevent, because this is not in any of these like ka ka ga ga nga or pa pa ba bha ma or ya va ha, right? So this is a different consonant. So this will prevent na, changing of na to na. So this will remain as darshana. So that is about na changing to na or not. Now we'll see, we'll discuss why. I mean, what could be the reason for this rule? Let's try to look at the logic behind this change of na to na. For that, we need to understand the ucharana sthanam of different letters in Sanskritam, that is swaras and vyanjanas both. So there are, as shown in the picture here, so there are mainly 5 ucharana sthanam or position of pronunciations in the mouth. The first one is kantha or guttural letters, which are the swara, the vowel and the first line which is shown here of consonants ka, kha, ga, gha, nga. For these, the ucharana sthanam is kantha. Then the next set of letters, the vowel e, and the second line of consonants, ja, cha, ja, jhaya, the Ucharana sthanam is talu, or they are palatal letters. And the next set of letters, which is the vowel R, and this line, ta, tha, da, dha, na, for them the Ucharana sthanam is this cerebral position or murdha in Sanskritam. The next set is the vowel L, and this line ta, tha, da, dha, na, Ucharana sthanam is danta. They are dental letters. The last one, the line here, pa, pha, ba, bha, ma. This line has the Ucharana sthanam as oshtha, or they are the labial letters. The lips is the position for them. And there are other swaras like U also is labial, lips. And there are other swaras like A, I, O, Au. They are the mix. They are the mix of kantha and talu, kantha and oshtha. And then there is these consonants, ya, ra, la, va, sha, sha, sa, ha. So here also the ya and sha, these are palatal or talavya, talu. They need this number 2. Sorry, number 2 position for them, ya and sha, right? And for this ra and sha, the position is this murdha, cerebral letters. And for la and sa, they are danta, dantya letters, or the position is they are the dental letters. And the last, this one va, what is va? Va needs the help of lips when we say va. And then the ha is a kantha letter, So these are the different positions we need to know to understand the logic behind this na and na. Now about the logic itself, let's look at this, the rules for na changing to na. The nimitta varanaha means the trigger letters ru, ra, sha. What are the ucharana sthanam? What is the ucharana sthanam of these letters? Nimitta varana, which is shown here. Right? These are the nimitta varanas. What is the position of these letters? These letters, the position is murdha, right? Ru, ra, sha. This is what we saw just now. The murdha, this is the ucharana sthanam of these nimitta varana. Now note that for the murdha, how is the tongue positioned? Because when we are pronouncing different letters at these different positions, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the jufa or the tongue is positioned or shaped differently. So if we are pronouncing this kantha varna, that is number 1, ka, kha, ga, gha, nga, and the position is normal. The juha, the tongue shape or position is normal, it's natural. There is no, it is not twisted or anything. But whereas number 2, okay, number 2, that is talu, when we are and also the sha, like in Shankara sha, the juha is here, right? Juha is shaped like this. Remember, note this. This is important to understand the logic. The juha is shaped like this, right? So the tip is pointing down and the top surface is pointing up here near the talu position. And when we are pronouncing this cerebral words or murdhanya varnaha, which are ta, tha, da, dha, na, how is it positioned? The shape of the tongue, it is like this. Right? So the tip of the tongue is rolled back and it is touching here, okay, like this. And for danta, what is the tongue shape? The danta, the tongue is, tip is pointing like this. It is protruding and the tongue is, tip of the tongue is straight, but it is pointing forward and touching in the back of the teeth here, the top upper teeth. Okay. And for the lips, again, that what is the position of the tongue? Like when we say pa, pa, ba, bha, ma. Again, it is in natural position, right? So no touch, like pa, pa, ba, bha, ma. So the lips are touching with each other. So this also we need to note the shape of the tongue here. Now, considering the trigger letters here, r, r, sh. What are these? What is the position of the letters here? They are murdhanya or cerebral letters, murdhanya letters. So they need this ucharana sthanam is here, 3. And what is the shape of the tongue? It is like this. Tip of the tongue rolled back here. And where is na? Na is dantya, right? It's a dental letter. And note that drawn a different color here. So it is pointing like this. The jufa or the tongue is pointing when we say na. Okay. Now the question is this na changing to na. For example, if you take the example shrunoti, right? We have shrunoti. Now originally it was here na, right? No ti. And after that, after sh there is a ru and there is a na. There is a trigger letter and after that is na. Now what is happening here? When we are saying r, this vowel r, it is a murdha, right? Which is shown here in red. The tip of the tongue rolled back, touching the murdha, number 3 position there. And na is the danta. Now, what is the position of na? Na. Position of na is also murdha. It is also 3. So all these nimitta letters, ru, ra, and sh, and na, all nimitta letters and this na, all of them they have this murdha as a position, and when in that position the jufa is in this shape, tip of the tongue rolled back, touching there. And whereas na is tip of the tongue protruding straight here towards back of the teeth here, danta. So when we are saying this r, shru, and r, and after that we want to say na. See the amount of effort required here. So the shape of the tongue is like this, the red one, rolled back, and after that there is a na which has to fall back and protrude, fall forward here. It has to touch the back of the teeth. So there is an effort involved there. So to avoid that effort, it is much easier to pronounce this na, okay? Na, which is already there, which is already at that murtha where the trigger letter is there. R, r, ra, sha. In this case, r. This r is already, the tongue is already there, shape is already set there, and instead of forcing that jufa or tongue to this dantya position to say na, so the easy thing to do is pronounce it as na. So this is this is how the sandhi works, the joining between the letters in Sanskritam. It all depends on the ease of pronunciation, or the natural way of pronunciation, naturally how it ends up being. So here also, note that the ru for this Shrunoti, ru is already there, shape is already set there, tongue is already there, and we don't have to change it to na, to force it to na and keep it there. Na, an example of Shrunoti, right? And if you take the other example also, like Arnava, so that is another example similar to Shrunoti. What we have Arnava. In Arnava you have Ra, right? We have Ra, and then there is Na was supposed to be there, but for pronouncing Ra, this Ra, which is a trigger letter, the tongue is already there, and instead of forcing it to this Dantya position, we just use that Na, which is already there, whose position is Na position is also Murdha. So we just use that Na there. So it becomes easy and natural. Arnama. So that's all fine. But what about the second rule, which says if there is between the trigger letter and the Na, there are other letters could also be there. Now, if example we saw is Bhashana. Let's say Bhashana. In this Bhashana, what is the trigger letter? Sh. Sh as a Vyanjanam. For Sh, this Shakara is also Murdhanya at number 3. And after that there is A. And then there is Na. In this Na, there is a Swara. A. Now what? Now, note that because this is for the Swara, what is the Jufa logic? What is the tongue? There is no tongue vikar, or tongue is not going to change. It is a natural sound. The swara is a natural sound. That tongue, yeah, it does move a little bit, but it doesn't touch anywhere. So there is no A is also kantha. It is a kantha. So this A is a very natural swara, and other swaras, other vowels are also natural. So the tongue, jufa doesn't involve the touch anywhere to any of those positions. So in that case also, it is easier to say na instead of na, because there is no jufa vikara when we are pronouncing the swara, or change of shape and twisting of tongue too much when we are saying swara. Now, looking at series, the ka line and per line, what is the logic? Now, ka, look at the ka. Ka series, what is the position? The position is kantha. For this, it is kantha. See the kantha again. See the tongue is not moving there. Obviously, this part is not moving. So there is a tongue. There is some touch here, or there is a compression here. Otherwise, the other part of the tongue is not affected. So this, we don't have to force this tip of the tongue to come here. So it just stays there. So that is why this na can be easily pronounced as a na here. If you force it to this position, it will be difficult for this line also, because these are kantha letters. And same with pa, pa, bha, bha, ma. These are labial or the osthya letters. Here also the jufa or the tongue is not going to be affected here when we say pa, bha, bha, ma. So this also doesn't make it makes it difficult if we move this tip of the tongue, which already rolled back here, to this dantya position. So it will be much easier if we just pronounce it as na. Bhashana was there, Ramana. Bhashana was there with the trigger letter sh with the in between. And for Ramana, we have ma, and after that and there is na coming letter coming after that. So we have ma, which is labial, which is Oshta letter, and then there is a swara in between. So this labial also doesn't involve the too much. I mean, it doesn't involve the change in the shape of the tongue, etc., or twisting of the tongue. So the tongue can remain there. And then after ra, the tongue can remain there. Also, is a swara. Being a swara doesn't affect the tongue, and the na, instead of saying na, the na is already there. Na sound can be pronounced from that position, so it becomes Ramana. Now, what about ya, va, ha? These are also non-preventing letters, right? That is what we saw in the rule. One is non-preventing letters. Letters are like this. All the swaras and ka varga and pa varga. Swaras doesn't involve twisting of the tongue, which is natural positions. There is a little bit movement when you say e, but not much. It doesn't touch any part of the tongue, any part of the mouth. And the ka series being in this kantha, so that doesn't involve changing the shape of the tongue. And pa also no involvement of the tongue. And so there is no need to bring that tip of the tongue here and just say na. But what about ya, va, ha? Ya, va, ha. So what is ya? Let's look at these letters. What is ya? Ya is made of two swaras, right? Ya, what is the sthanam of ya actually? Sthanam of ya is talu, right? That is what we have seen. Talu, which is number 2 actually. So, but number 2, like sha, it is a preventing position. Na, changing to na should be prevented, but it doesn't prevent here. Why? Because what is actually ya? Ya is like a intermediate consonant. Yeah. So it is actually made up of two swaras, two vowels. One is e and a. So when we say e and a together quickly, it becomes ya, ya, ya. So basically it is made up of two vowels in this sequence, ya. So that is also vowel, actually combination of vowels. So vowels, the swaras do not prevent na to na. So na, it will change to na. And because this ya is like this, e and a, it will change. Now what about va? Va is also like this. Va is a combination of u and a. When we pronounce this u and a quickly, uva, uva. So that is va. So this is also made up of two vowels, two swaras. So it won't prevent changing na to na. And how about ha? Na to na. And how about ha? Ha is not made up of two vowels, but ha is, what is the position of ha? Ucharana sthanam is kantha. So ha is kantha. So because it is kantha, like ka varga, ka, kha, ga, gha, nga, they are also kantha, ucharana sthanam. Ha is also kantha. So there is no twisting, twirling of the tongue involved there. So it is natural ha position of tongue there, ha. So that also does not prevent changing of na to na. So if you consider the other example where na is being prevented to change to na, so if you take the example of darshana, okay, darshana. So what is the order of the letters here? There is ra, and then there is sha, and then there is a, and then there is na. So in this case, ra, the trigger letter is there, but after that there is a sha, which is a talavya sha, which is talu number 2 is the position there. So what is the shape of the tongue here? Jufa is like this, right? Sha, when we are pronouncing it, the top surface of the tongue is at the talu position. And after that, there is a swara. Swara doesn't prevent, that's fine. But after that, there is a na. The na is here. Na is there. Na is in the danta position. Now note that this one is, we don't have to force the tip of the tongue to na here. So this is easy here to go to the jufa, or the tongue can easily touch this na position. Whereas actually to changing it back to na, which is murdhanya, will be more difficult. Right? So just changing it to na here is much easier in case of darshana. So this, when we say there is a preventing letter, pronouncing of na is easier if there is a preventing letter. So let's take another example. Let's say murdna. Murdna is another word where the na comes there. Let's say murdna. Murdna, which is, can write it like this, Murdna. In this, what is the order of the letter? After mu, we have ra, and then there is dha consonant, and then there is na. Yeah, there is a trigger letter ra. There is a dha in between na and the trigger letter. So does it change to na as per the rule? No, because dha is a preventing letter. But what is the logic? The refa, after that refa, we are pronouncing dha, which is dantya letter, right? What is dantya letter here? Dha. For the dha, the jufa, the tongue is already here, dha. And it is much easier to pronounce na. We don't have to change it to na here. So na is already here. So just we can say murdna. When you try to say with murdhanya na, this it will be much difficult. Murdna. So we don't want to change it to na here. In this case, the dantya na remains as na because it is much easier because of the shape of the tongue, which is already naturally there. So if you take another example, also same thing. Like if you say parvatena, parvatena. So if you take this parvatena, so here there is a trigger letter ra, and then there is va, there is a, the, a, sorry, not a, and then there is na. This is parvatena, right? Parvatena. So between the trigger letter ra and this na, there are few letters here. Va, a, ta, a. So swaras do not prevent the change of na to na. But what about va and ta? Va is a combination of u and a. We saw that before. The O and O is Voshta here. So that also doesn't prevent. But the, so we are saying Parvata already there. The. So the is, where is the? That is also Dantya. Its position is Danta. So then now after that pronouncing the na is much easier. So we don't have to change it to na. Like this, na. So these are the basis or the rules how they are formed behind this natvam or na changing to na. So this is the logic of generally any sandhi or joining of letters in Sanskritam. That is nothing, not a difficult rule to understand any sandhi. And in this case, we looked at this na changing to na. So these are all the Vyakarana rules. They are formed based on the natural pronunciation, how it occurs during the pronunciation. So an example is which we just saw. Some other time we'll look at the logic behind other sandhis also. So hopefully this was useful for you. Thank you. Dhanyavadaha.